Oliver Farrow, and for many of you know who I am, but some of you don't. I'm President and CEO of the Oliver Group, but most importantly, I've been handling the Tower Company's public relations for the last 10 years. So I'm really excited to be here, and I think in the 10 years, this is the first time I've seen everyone together, so welcome. Let's begin. We'll start with Gary.
He is the oldest.
He is the oldest.
No. Who thinks I'm the youngest? See that? Give all those people a raise.
So Gary,
Yes.
What was your first job at the Tower Companies?
I think probably when I was a little boy, and I can't remember exact age, teenager, I helped burn down the old Blair Mansion, but it was on purpose. We actually used the fire department in Silver Spring to help us burn it down so that we could then begin building the whole Blair project. This was in the late 50s. Mm-hmm. And then we started doing all the excavation there, and a lot of the dirt that came out of a big hill was used to build the extension of 16th Street, because it stopped right at the Maryland line.
And how old were you?
I was probably 13, 14, 15 years old.
All right. Ronald, what was your first job, or with Tower?
My first job was with Jim Schneider, who used to run the accounting department before Rory, who was a very super tall fellow. And,
Still is.
Very nice. And my first job was to review the financial statements. I was always interested in accounting and those kind of money matters. And so he asked me to review the financial statements for Blair House. Back then, Blair House had a telephone operator for the 300 plus apartments. So I looked at the bill for the phone company, and they charged for each apartment. So there was a separate charge with the telephone switchboard for each apartment. So I looked at the bill, and they had only charged us for half the apartments, not the whole 300. So I went to Jim Schneider and I said, well, this doesn't look right. So I said, should we tell the telephone company they're undercharging us? And Jim Schneider, to his credit, after thinking about it only for a nanosecond, said, yes, we should tell them, and that you have to do business correctly. And he told them, and we did pay a little more, but we had the right values. That's my first job. I was about 13 years old.
There you go. And Jeffrey, the baby of the family. You always talked about learning about the business around the dining room table. When did you get started with Tower?
It is true. But my first job was to pick up trash at the Blairs. And after about a year, they moved me up to cutting the grass. But it is true, the education I had really was at the dining room table. The business had evolved since Ronald and Gary. By the time I was 5 or 10, I could realize what was going on. We only talked about business, except when our mother would plead, is there something else we can talk about other than business? Remember that?
And we said no.
I remember, though, distinctly that there was one time that we lasted 30 seconds, but it was stimulating.
Thank you. How has your work and passion for what you do aligned with your philanthropy? And I'm going to start with Ronald.
Well, during those 30 seconds, my mother got a few words in. We were inculcated with the kind of the transformative value of culture, the arts, and education. And it's easy in business when you're an owner and hopefully make a few bucks to kind of over-focus on consumption and consumption for your personal use. So luckily at an early age, originally from my father's parents who had no money but were extremely charitable, I think we were all properly focused on the role of philanthropy in all our lives, really regardless of how much you make. And so fast forward to today, it's pretty amazing that all three of us have been heavily involved in many charities, but in particular in education. So I worked for the last 10 years on this project. I have to get everybody on a tour. So I went to New York University for undergraduate, and New York University had this idea to create a global network university. So they have campuses on every continent in the world, the first university to achieve that. And they had no campus in Washington because normally you study abroad, which means you leave the United States. So being kind of a cheerleader for Washington, I suggested that they build a campus here. So the last campus to be built is at 13th and L. And so the students come here for a semester, they live in the building, they take classes in the building, and everybody is an intern somewhere in the city. And Gary, as everybody knows, is the chairman emeritus of American University. Jeffrey's the current chairman of MUM. So fortunately, we were properly inculcated with philanthropic values.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
What was the question?
How's the work? And,
No, I'm just
yes,
kidding.
Okay.
It was really beautiful listening to Ronald. My mind was just completely off and listening to him. I was born with a very strong desire to end suffering. It was just completely has consumed me and has never changed. And I was very lucky that I learned transcendental meditation, which many of you have, when I was 20. And I experienced that the depths of the mind was very silent. There was great clarity. There was great contentment. And I saw that as the basis of changing all of society. If we could end human suffering from within, then we could envision a world where we wouldn't have so many problems, where we would have a world at peace. And extending that, when I was about 20 or so, I had the honor of working in Switzerland at the international headquarters and working with the founder of the Transcendental Meditation Program, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And there I watched one man work day and night to end suffering every part of the world. I was transformed by that experience because I saw that I too could become a catalyst for change. It didn't need to take everyone. A few people could make a big difference in the world. And when I came back to the family business, I had read that that our industry, the real estate industry, used 40% of all the energy in America, which meant we created 40% of all the pollution, which meant that we were the biggest polluters in the country, more than cars, more than copper mines. And as Ronald said, we lived a world where we lived a life where we took care of the world, and all of a sudden we were bringing the biggest damage to society and society's health. But because of the experience I had with Maharishi, I realized that Tower could become a catalyst to transform the entire real estate industry and move the country off this dependence on energy and become an economy based not on waste, but based on protecting and saving the environment. And that would mean, in my mind, that we would rebuild all the old buildings in the country. We would change all the tax laws. We would create enough jobs for all of America, in America, more than the IT industry. We would create new technologies. People would have a reason to go back to school. Our universities would be researching and developing new technologies that would change our life and change our health and change the amount of energy and that it would only take a few years. We would just build one building, 1909K, and we would show the world that it can be done. We did, but looking back now, 17 years later, it took a lot longer than I wished it had. It could have gone a lot faster. But, you know, the national conversation, I think, has really become about sustainable communities, sustainable lifestyles. I think we value people more. We value Mother Nature more. We value the precious gifts. And all of you have been part of that. And I think we can all honestly feel that Tower has tipped time in a more forward direction. And I think, therefore, we could see that our business, what we do every day, is affecting, though it may seem like one small step, it's inspiring a whole movement through the help of Elizabeth, publicizing what we do. And I think we can all feel that our business has become our philanthropy.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Gary, if I may ask you that question, and then we'll move on to the final question. How has your work been?
Thanks to my father, who, as many of you know, really started out with nothing, and over a long period of time, with good timing, was able to build up a base of our business, which we've gone on to expand. We have been able to build up enough resources that we could create some charitable and philanthropic funds to help other people. As you've heard, we are involved in education between American University, MUM, and NYU. We're also involved with in scientific and medical research at Weizmann Institute of Science, at George Washington University, where I was a patient, where we're funding research in emergency medicine, and also in the arts. Ronald's been involved with the Corcoran Gallery of Art. I've been
So was our
involved,
mother.
and my mother was on the board there. She was also involved with music, with the National Symphony. And I'm also the chairman of the Heifetz International Music Institute, which is a very high-level master's class and training organization for young 13 to 21-year-old talented musicians, violin, viola, cello. And there's still a tremendous interest, believe it or not, in classical music. And so we covered the bases from science to medicine to education to the arts, and some in our community and some internationally. So I think that, you know, it's important, and we've tried to pass this on also to our kids, to do something for the world and your community, in addition to building a business for yourself.
Thank you, Gary. Also, the Hispanic Scholarship Fund is on that list.
All right, muy bien.
Muy bien. What do you hope your legacy will be? Gary, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go to Ronald and Jeffrey.
I think that we are interested in making an impact in the Washington area as well. And as you can see from our office buildings, shopping centers, apartments, we try to build good quality architecture, a great place for people to live and to work, and a sustainable architecture, which all of you know that we're interested in. And in addition to creating all these places for people to live and make a living, we're hoping maybe we can make some money as well.
Thank you. Ronald?
I hope our legacy is to treat, I'm also a lawyer, I have to leave soon for my other job, and but what I learned a lot in the legal business is that service is crucial. So if we, and I learned a lot of this also from Debbie, if we treat our tenants as clients, then we'll have a better perspective on our role. And although tenants we see every day can be demanding, sometimes unreasonable, sometimes difficult, it's just the nature of the equation. We're providing services and they're paying for those services. And if we keep that perspective in mind, I think we'll be better landlords, we'll have happier tenants, the tenants will be at least somewhat enthusiastic about paying the rent, and more importantly, the existing tenants, whether it's residential, retail, or commercial, want to stay with us because they'll realize that very few landlords today have this perspective. And I think that's a great legacy if we can all achieve that together.
Thank you, Ronald. Jeffrey?
I think legacy on many levels. One, Tower, and that we collectively, as Gary was saying, built a better world. I see us as instruments of change, that we created an economy based on environment and protecting human health. I see us as also as instruments in bringing about perfect health in the world. It's achievable. I think that we can make Americans independent. We can create new jobs, and Tower will be known for the ones who created that industry. I think that worthy of being the children of Albert and Ruth Abramson. I think worthy of the time I had when I was with Maharshi. I would like to see the transformation of education to where it produces enlightened students who are going to be the next generation of leaders, and maybe peace in everyone's heart. So I'm going to need to live a long time.